Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Breeze Time with Kathy. It's so good to be able to visit with you for a few minutes this way. The fall weather is here. As a matter of fact, Thanksgiving's around the corner, isn't it? I've enjoyed seeing the fall leaves. The color was remarkably good right here, right around the Hermitage. I have to admit, I didn't get to see that when I was down in New Orleans. It wasn't predictable this way, but it was nice. Most of the leaves are gone now, but it's the way the seasons are. You get a real sense of the passage of time. It's one of the things I love about Virginia. We really do have four distinct seasons, and hopefully winter, though I always like to see at least one snow once. It doesn't have to stay for long to make me happy. So I'm not wishing a lot of snow for everybody. But I have to admit, fall is here. It's the end, approaching the end of November. And of course, it's time for Thanksgiving. I think every family in America has their own memories of Thanksgiving, their own traditions. Some are pretty common. Lots of people have turkey. I know we always did. Turkey was the one thing my mother could cook. My mother was not a great cook. She would admit it herself. But she made a wonderful turkey and a terrific turkey dressing. Now, I can't tell you. All I remember about the turkey dressing, for one thing, we had to get the big, long loaves of French bread. Better back up so I can show you. Because they're a good, I don't know, 2.5 feet long, 2.5 feet long. And we would take that and we would have to make breadcrumbs. So that meant we had to tear the bread into little pieces, in order to make the breadcrumbs for the stuffing that Mom would make for the and dressing she'd make for the turkey. And then I remember that she also. That was something we did. And by the way, we pretty much did turkey for Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Easter. Turkey was the times we had turkey. My mom loved the idea of a lamb at Easter, but she didn't have she couldn't cook lamb. So anyway, we had turkey, but that was all right. I loved the way my mom cooked turkey. The dinner was always so wonderful. And I can remember helping her, watching her stuff the turkey and make the stuffing, and she'd take the big pot and we'd crumble all that bread into it, and that was fun. Even when I was little, I could help with that. And then she'd throw in onions and I don't know what, all kinds of stuff. And then I think she put in a little sausage along with the giblets, or, the gizzards or whatever goes in there. The stuff that comes wrapped up in the turkey and is sitting inside the turkey when you buy it. She took parts of those and cooked it. I know it's the parts you don't want to think about, but it added something. And she used to stuff inside the turkey, but we liked the stuffing so much, she also usually put a casserole dish on the side. But the best dressing came from inside the turkey, the stuffing inside the turkey. And Mom really used to do a good job with that turkey. Of course, what else do you have to have? Well, you have to have yams. Yams are southern sweet potatoes, and you had to have yams with marshmallows on top, and that was really wonderful. And sometimes they throw in pecans because pecans were in season. I used to love pecans. As a matter of fact, I got so much with the cold weather and the fall, and it was just the right time. My neighbors used to have a pecan orchard. And as I told you, we lived on a couple of acres. I think they lived on 5 or 6, and they had an old pecan orchard. And I used to go over there and pick pecans. And I got this year, I don't know, the weather turned cool, and I got a yankering for pecans, and so I ordered some pecans online. Oh, they're so good. I keep them in the freezer now, and just a few every night. It just reminds me of home. It's my favorite nut, but that's not surprising. It's the one I grew up on. Well, anyway, you can put pecans in your sweet potatoes, and I remember they always had the marshmallows on top. Oh, that was so wonderful. We never did anything that fancy except for holidays. And then Mom would buy the dinner rolls, the brown and served dinner rolls. But it didn't matter. I loved them because they would be the kind that pulled apart into 3 pieces. So wonderful. And the best thing, the turkey, the dressing, the yams with the mushrooms on top. And then, of course, you had to have the cranberry sauce. Now, the only cranberry sauce, even to this day, that I really love is the good old Ocean Spray jellied cranberry sauce. My mother had a crystal dish that stood up about that tall. It was on a little pedestal and it came up like that. It was a cut crystal. She had a whole set of hand-cut crystal that she bought when she was in Germany. And Mom used to open either end of the can of Ocean Spray cranberry sauce, and then she'd slide it, she'd push it out. So not only was it round and shaped like a cylinder, which looked to me to be oh so fancy, but it had lovely little crinkles around the middle, and you could kind of see right through it. It was a little bit like Jell-O, but firmer, and that's just the way to have cranberry sauce. And even to this day, that's the way I like cranberry sauce. And it's funny, you go these fancy places and they want to make cranberry sauce with real cranberries in it, but that just doesn't say holidays to me. I guess it's what you grow up on. It's good, but it's not holiday cranberry, Thanksgiving or Christmas cranberry sauce. Nope. It's just not what I was raised on. It's good, and I enjoy it, but it's not the same. Well, moving right along. My mom, as I said, would fix these meals, and they were great. We had a good time. But there was a tradition. On Thanksgiving, Mom, for a large part of my young years, probably from the time I was about 4 or 5, till the time, I was in my teens, I guess, or maybe a little older, early 20s, we would go to my uncle's house, my aunt and uncle's house. Now, they lived in uptown New Orleans. They lived right off of Magazine Street, and they lived on Jackson Avenue, actually. And it was one of those old-fashioned antebellum, or immediately, theirs was an antebellum home. 14-foot ceilings downstairs and 12-foot ceilings upstairs. Absolutely beautiful. They didn't have any children. My uncle, I think I've mentioned him before, he was an architectural historian, so he had all these wonderful, wonderful things on his wall. He had a Persac map, which, if you know what that, my sister and I were talking about that, it probably is a good 10 feet long map. And it showed the length of the Mississippi River, and it had all the plantations, the pre-war plantations listed there. And that was an original Persac map, and I remember that. That, along with most of my uncle's other historic documents, were donated to Tulane. He was on faculty there, though he had an active architectural practice and was well known as a historian, an architectural historian and a preservation historian, and published any number of books. He also taught one course, the history of Louisiana architecture, at Tulane University for 40 years. And so he donated all of his historic documents to Tulane University. But I'm off the track. The point is that we would go uptown, and it was always in the evening we'd go for Thanksgiving dinner. My Aunt Betty, Uncle Junior's, we called him Junior. His name was Samuel Wilson Jr., and Mom had already called him Junior, so we called him Uncle Junior. And we would go to their house. Now, Aunt Betty was from Baltimore. She was from a very famous Baltimore family. Actually, her great-grandfather, three greats, I think, grandfather was one of the architects of the Capitol. He was an architect of the Capitol, and he was Henry Latrobe, and he was also a contemporary of George Washington's. And he actually, I remember they had a sketch on their wall hanging on the staircase just at the height that I could read it if I stood on the step and watched. And it was a page from Latrobe's sketchbook, and it showed George Washington. It was a profile of George Washington. It said a sketch of George Washington stolen at Mount Vernon while he looks over he looks up the Potomac for some friends who will arrive shortly, waiting for some friends or something to arrive. And he was a guest there, and they were friends. And he was quite well known. And then I think she had a grandfather that was a mayor of Baltimore, a Latrobe. So consequently, she was born and raised in Baltimore, and actually my uncle, I'm way off the track here, but my uncle had been researching a book on Latrobe. He was going to publish Latrobe kept journals, very comprehensive journals, and he was going to publish the Latrobe journals that had to do with Latrobe's visit to New Orleans. And he went and visited the Latrobe family in Baltimore to do as part of his research, and that's how he met my aunt, and they got married. They were both a little older at the time. They never did have children. But I remember their house was full of antiques because she had all these things from the Latrobe family, and Uncle Junior was a historic architect. So, I mean, what do you expect? They had oil paintings, and I can remember the dining room particularly. We always had to eat by candlelight. And we would sit there in the dining room, and there was a children's table. It was my little sister and brother. My brother's 2 years older than I am. My sister's 2 years younger. And then I had another brother who was 7 years older than I am. Now he sat at the table for a good long while, I think, instead of graduating to the adult table because he was supposed to keep an eye on us. And but that was fine because the grown-up table was really boring. But we used to sit in this big, dark dining room, and there were silver candelabras on the table, and we ate by candlelight, and these oil paintings. On one wall we had oil paintings of my great-great-grandparents staring down at us, and then on another one we had Henry Latrobe staring, looking at us. It was and then on another one, and they had flickered in the candlelight. And then for Thanksgiving, Aunt Betty had a housekeeper. Oh, I don't remember her name, but I do remember the name of her husband. Apparently he did some odd jobs for her, but he would always come and serve and be the butler for Thanksgiving. Can you believe it? I used to have Thanksgiving with a butler, and Jules was his name. This is the truth. His name was Jules. And he would wear his white coat, and he would come out and he'd serve, serve drinks and cocktails to the family, and I would get a soft drink, and I used to have to sit there in my best clothes and behave. And the house was always cold. If it was a cold Thanksgiving, that house was always cold. My mother told me it's because Aunt Betty grew up in Baltimore, and she preferred the house to be cool all the time. I don't know, but it was always cold. And of course my uncle didn't mind. He was the man, one of those men who always wore a jacket, even in his own house. And most often, and very often, wore a tie all the time. He did every day of his life when he went to work at the office. It was just the way he was raised. So anyway, there were lots of things about that. It was very interesting. Of course, we had real silver, and there was, the best china, and I was scared to break anything. Oh, I remember those Thanksgivings. The best thing for me was that after dinner, we were dismissed and got to go upstairs to their bedroom, which was where we could kind of look at all the maps. That's where the big Persac map was, this almost floor-to-ceiling map that ran long ways with the Mississippi River running into it on yellowed parchment paper, I suppose it was, and just absolutely lovely. And we could see all this stuff, but we got to watch TV, which was really good, until it was time to go. So we were real pleased about that. It's funny, my sister was telling me the thing she remembers about it more than anything else was riding in the car, the whole family together, all 7 of us. And believe it or not, we used to fit in one car. We always had to have a big car. My dad, even for a trip when I was 10 years old, he bought a 3-seated limousine. It was black. I think it had belonged to a funeral home. It was a 1950s Cadillac. So, of course, it had the big bumpers and everything, and it had seats that pulled out, jump seats, so it could hold the whole family comfortably. And Mom had to have air conditioning, too. She had to have air conditioning in every car. My mother couldn't stand being hot, but she sure didn't like it to be too cold either. But what my sister remembers, and she reminded me of, was the ride back home. And it was nice. We were all glad to be headed home. And we'd be in the car, and it was just a comfortable feeling. And I remember we would pass the Half Moon Cafe, and it had one of those old-fashioned, probably 30s neon signs, with 30s or 40s neon signs with a half moon on it. And when I saw that, we were about to get on the Mississippi River Bridge, cross the river, and we'd be home in 10 or 15 minutes. It was great. It really was. It's funny the things you remember. Betsy said the best memory she had of that was seeing that sign and knowing she was in the car with the whole family, because we were such a busy family. We weren't all very often all together, unless we were going to Aunt Betty and Uncle Junior's, Funny. But after Aunt Betty passed away, then of course we had our Thanksgiving dinners at our house, and Uncle Junior would come to us for Thanksgiving, which was always fun and always nice. He really was. He kind of loosened up. He wasn't as formal, but then he never was 100% formal. Like Betsy said, when nobody was looking and we were sitting at the children's table, she reminded me, in that very fancy, in their fancy uptown house with all the crystal and the china and the candlelight, he'd make funny faces or hand puppet or hand things to make us laugh. He really did. He was a good guy. But then we had Thanksgiving at our house, and Mom still wanted all the best. She wanted to drag out her crystal and her china and her silver, and of course we children had to polish the silver. But that's the way it is. I remember polishing the silver and polishing all this kind of stuff. All the stuff people don't do anymore, But they made wonderful memories. I've shared a few memories of mine with you, and I'm sure you have your own memories of Thanksgivings and how you celebrated them. Sort of the quintessential Norman Rockwell Thanksgiving, if you've seen that print. I'm going to insert a picture of it here, so let me pause for a second. This is probably the iconic image of Thanksgiving in America. This painting by Norman Rockwell. Actually, except for the fact that the cranberry sauce doesn't look like, if that's cranberry sauce on the table, it doesn't look like it came out of a Ocean Spray can. And the fact that they have plain water glasses instead of we had to have crystal goblets and crystal wine glasses, it's not that much different of the Thanksgivings I remember when I was very young. Yeah, that's the image a lot of Americans have of Thanksgiving. Now, of course, a lot of times it's when my brother has Thanksgiving, I know they like to fry the chicken, and sometimes they get a turducken, which is a turkey wrapped around a chicken, wrapped around a duck, wrapped around a chicken. It's a New Orleans thing, and they've cooked that, And then you can also deep fry your turkey, and they've done that, I know. Uh, it's there's all kinds of things, and of course, Thanksgivings are less formal now, and football takes over in a lot of households. I know that's the way it was in my in-laws' household. You know, they ate a big meal, and it was kind of, yeah, they would sit down, but and have the meal, but they had to get it done in time to watch football. And I imagine that's a lot of them. And of course, there's the wonderful tradition of the Thanksgiving afternoon nap. Yeah, that's one thing I did. Well, this year, things are going to look a little bit different at the Hermitage. I know in past years, we've always had a wonderful Thanksgiving, tried to do a wonderful Thanksgiving meal, and you've been encouraged to invite your families if you couldn't go to your family's house. Now with COVID, we just can't have that. But this week you'll be getting notices about some of the things we are doing during the quarantine. We recognize that this is a year that really is one where you want to give thanks. We will, of course, be having our annual Thanksgiving luncheon. It'll start at 11:30 on November 26th, Thursday, November 26th, Thanksgiving Day in the dining room. And that will, it'll be a traditional Thanksgiving meal, I believe. I'm sure you'll have lots of options as usual. Also, the staff who work here, if you would like, they will be glad. There'll be more information coming out this week, but sort of an adopt a resident, I don't know about that. We all know each other pretty well these days. But still in all, team members who'll be working on Thanksgiving will be able to share that Thanksgiving meal at your table if you like. Since your own family couldn't come, we'd like to do what we can to stand in. There's going to be a notice going out this week. You may have already received it by the time this airs, but by all means, Kenya has more information about that. But I'm sure you'll be getting a notice, and they'll explain the contact information and how it works. Another thing on Thanksgiving Day is there'll be a happy hour at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in the down by the bistro area in the lobby. There'll be a happy hour, so I hope you'll be able to join in that, socially distant, of course, but enjoy it down there. Trying to make it festive. If you know, I really like what Adrian did to decorate the bistro area and the dining room area with the fall pumpkins and corn, harvest corn and Indian corn and things like that. Gives it a nice atmosphere. Another thing that'll be going on the week of Thanksgiving, on the Tuesday, Wednesday, on Tuesday the 17th, on the 24th, the 25th, and the 28th. Let's see, those are let me look and see what days those are. That's the Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday. On Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday, they'll be scheduling Zoom calls in the auditorium. A staff member will be there to facilitate it for you. They're going to be able to put in a virtual Thanksgiving themed background, and you can set up the time to call your family. The neat thing about it is that you will be able to see your family on the big screen, on the movie screen in the auditorium. The advantage of that, I hope, is that it's something a little special. You'll get to see everyone clearly, and hopefully, too, for our residents who have low vision problems, who may not have been able to enjoy Zoom calls or video calls in the past, maybe they can enjoy this too. But we wanted to do something special to help people connect, and you'll be able to call the desk. You'll be able to call the desk starting Tuesday and make reservations for those phone calls. Tuesday the 17th, you can start calling the desk and you can reserve times on the on the Tuesday, Wednesday, or Saturday, the week of Thanksgiving. They're not available on Thanksgiving Day, unfortunately, and the visitor center will be closed. So that's kind of, I wish we could do everything, but unfortunately, we can't. The calls will last 30 minutes apiece. And also, for those of you who have family who live in this area, we know you can't be with them physically at the table. But we'd like something from the Hermitage on your behalf. We're giving pies for your family members. There's going to be, they can choose an apple or a pumpkin pie, and they'll be able to drive by the auditorium. They're also getting information on this on, on the Monday or Tuesday before Thanksgiving between 11 and 1, and they can pick up a pie that they can then have at their Thanksgiving table. And it's something from you and from the Hermitage for your family. And it's one little way that you can share that time with them. So I think it's going to be, we're doing the best we can, and I hope that it's going to be a wonderful Thanksgiving, one that you'll be able to remember, and one your family will be able to remember. And that you will find a way to connect with them, to connect with others, and give thanks to our Creator for the many blessings in our lives, even in the midst of this pandemic. God bless.